When you think about budgets, you think about money, right? Dollars and cents. But Albany has this weird tradition of debating what would be regular, ordinary bills about policy and law as a part of the budget. Some leaders say that's the only way to get anything done, to get people to the table. Others say the money stuff should be considered all on its own. We suss out who's on which side right now in Albany on today's Story of the Day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Pearsall Wealth Management at UBS Wealth Management USA, subsidiary UBS AG, member FINRA SIPC, 1 Broad Street Plaza, Glens Falls. And the New York State Caregiving and Respite Coalition, seeking volunteers aged 55 plus to support family caregivers in northern and central New York. Visit nyscrc.org/AmeriCorps.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Monday, April 14th. First up, earlier this year, corrections officers around New York went on a wildcat strike to demand safer working conditions. The state fired 2,000 of them who didn't return to work after multiple rounds of negotiations with their union. 2 of the North Country state lawmakers are now sponsoring a bill that would allow them to go back to work. Kara Chapman has more.
The legislation would give the correction officers until July 1st to return to work without retribution. It's sponsored by Senator Dan Steck of Queensberry and Assemblyman Scott Gray of Watertown, both Republicans. COs walked off the job because they were concerned for their safety. That was partially due to an ongoing staffing crisis. The firings made that crisis even worse, and, the lawmakers say, expensive. Governor Kathy Hochul's budget director recently said that deploying the National Guard and other interventions at the prisons is costing the state $100 million a month. Steck and Gray claim reinstating all 2,000 of the fired COs would cost about a fifth of that. The governor doesn't comment on pending legislation. Spokesperson Avi Small said the state corrections department gave COs who participated in the illegal strike multiple grace periods to return to work before they were fired. He added the department and the governor are adding safety policies, aggressively recruiting new COs, and establishing committees to take up multiple issues. The state also potentially plans to release hundreds of incarcerated people to help alleviate the staffing crisis. The only people eligible for early release would be those whose release dates are just weeks or months away. It would also only apply to nonviolent offenders. Assemblyman Billy Jones is the North Country's lone Democrat in Albany and a former correction officer. He said he agrees with the sentiment of Steck and Gray's bill, but said the decision to reinstate COs ultimately lies with Hochul. Kara Chapman, North Country Public Radio.
The Trump administration froze over $1 billion in funding for Cornell University last week. The administration says Cornell is one of 60 universities that's failing to protect Jewish students. The White House says funding will stay locked while alleged civil rights violations are investigated. But as Aurora Berry reports for the New York Public News Network, some people are calling on the university to fight back.
Cornell is just one of a growing number of universities that have had their funding frozen by the Trump administration. The White House sent a list of demands and actions for Columbia and Harvard to take in order to get that money back. It's a deal Columbia University has agreed to. Risa Leibowitz, president of Cornell's chapter of the American Association of University Professors, says that was the wrong choice.
This is a time to act on principle, and it's a time to be brave.
Leibowitz says the Trump administration is trying to dismantle democratic institutions, including universities. She says Cornell should stand up against potential demands from the White House.
History also tells us that when institutions capitulate to autocratic demands, then the authoritarian government simply demands more.
In a statement last week, Cornell President Michael Kotlikoff said the university received over 75 stop work orders on research he described as crucial to national defense, cybersecurity, and health. He wrote that Cornell has worked to protect all individuals and viewpoints, and he said that the university is committed to working with its federal partners to continue research. In Ithaca, I'm Aurora Berry for the New York Public News Network.
New York's budget will be at least 2 weeks late. Our Capitol reporters Jung-Yoon Han and Jimmy Vielkind of the New York Public News Network are here to break down the stumbling blocks and the state of play in Albany right now.
Hey, Jung-Yoon.
Hi, Jimmy.
So the state budget's still late, and things are starting to get a little spicy. One of the state's top lawmakers, Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie, introduced a bill that he seems to think will reduce the governor's leverage. What's going on?
Right. So for context, the speaker's mantra on budget talks is that it should always just be about crunching the numbers, about the dollars and the cents, not about policy. The governor, meanwhile, says she doesn't really care that the budget is late because of policy negotiations. But a late budget is a bigger problem for lawmakers like Speaker Hastie, who don't get paychecks until a budget is passed. So he recently introduced a bill that would let lawmakers get paid if a budget is late because of policy.
Is that actually going to pass?
Well, it seems like it's really just a message that he's trying to send to the governor. It doesn't seem like it will go very far. It's an indication that things aren't going so well in terms of budget negotiations.
You know, the other big development has been prosecutors and people who support the governor coming to the Capitol. They were pushing for changes to the discovery laws, which govern how evidence is shared before a criminal trial. So what did prosecutors have to say, Jung-Yoon?
Yeah, this has been one of the biggest sticking points in the budget, and in recent days, a trickle of district attorneys have been coming up to Albany to support the governor's proposal on how evidence is shared. Some of them are sticking to their guns and saying that there should be stricter changes to the rules about how much material needs to be turned over. Others, though, are showing some willingness for compromise. They're saying instead of emphasizing the rules for the materials, they might be more comfortable with just changing the consequences if there is a slip up.
How did lawmakers take that?
Well, a powerful caucus of Black and Hispanic lawmakers still oppose the governor's proposals writ large. They say that the plan would tip the scales of justice in favor of prosecutors. Hence, the budget negotiations are still in deadlock. On the money side of things, you've been covering that. What's the latest there?
Well, you know, the budget is still big. It's more than $250 billion, and it's built on a pretty rosy economic picture. Remember that Kathy Hochul put this budget together in January. But that picture, it's really dated. Mm-hmm. Anyone who's followed the news in recent days has seen the stock market really take a tumble in response to President Trump's tariffs. Things did start to recover a little bit when Trump paused those new levies.
It still doesn't look good, no.
No, and it's still, there's a lot of uncertainty. That's important because Wall Street, and we say Wall Street is not Main Street, but Wall Street accounts for about 20% of state income tax revenues. So when the stock market's not doing well, it has big consequences for the state budget. I asked some of the top lawmakers about this and whether it gives them any qualms about pushing ahead with such a big spending plan. Assembly Speaker Hastie said it was too soon to tell, but the budget director, Blake Washington, who works for Governor Hochul, he said it did give him, quote, pause. It still seems likely that the budget will be bigger than what Hochul proposed.
When will we get a sense of how big that budget will be?
Well, it's hard to say, Jung-Yoon. It's pretty week to week right now. We'll have to see what progress report lawmakers get when they return to the Capitol on Tuesday. But here's how two top Assembly members, Ed Rah and Gary Pretlow, put it on the chamber floor.
We're a week closer than we were last week.
A week closer to what?
That does not sound like good progress.
Yeah, I don't really have a prediction of when this will get done, but I'll see you soon.
Until next time, thank you, Jimmy.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
That was Jung-Yoon Han and Jimmy Vielkind of the New York Public News Network. Their conversation was recorded on Thursday. Lawmakers return to the Capitol tomorrow. Meanwhile, it's day one of our spring fundraiser, and we're compressing it into 1 week. You know, can we raise all the money the public radio needs to stay financially strong in that short a time? We'll see. All the local and regional reporting that you hear on Story of the Day, it's just not happening with your donations. And here's a special enticement. You can double your dollars, get every donation matched when you start a monthly donation or increase your monthly sustaining gift. It's a very unique and special match opportunity. So when you give $10 a month, it's like giving $20 a month, thanks to other generous donors. So give now. Go to ncpr.org/give. You're doing so much to ensure local journalism stays strong in the North Country. Thank you so much. Music today by the Wickmore Jazz Trio of Plattsburgh. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.